Hi, my name is Lane, and if you are in the process of deconstructing your faith, or you just have some questions or doubts, this video is for you. I want to share with you a little bit about my story and how Talk About Doubts ministry helped me and how it can help you as well. So, my story, I had a faith crisis when I was in high school. And in high school, I put a lot of hope in God. I had a lot of trust in God. And I had come across some arguments against Christianity online and began to have some pretty serious doubts. This was the first time, I think, that I had really seriously considered or wondered if the God that I was praying to and casting my anxieties upon was just a figment of my imagination, was just my brain and nervous system making up spiritual experiences and convincing myself that this was real. And that was a scary thought for me. So as a result, I ended up investigating Christianity. I had pretty limited resources at the time, but I ended up investigating it, and I came out on the other side of that investigation more convinced that it was true. So that faith crisis was pretty much settled, and I went on my way. Some years later, I had another faith crisis. And contrary to the previous one, where it was a set of arguments that caused my doubts, this one was more about whether or not I had enough information to come to the conclusion that Christianity was true. So, how confident could I really be? And it was initiated by something different than the previous faith crisis. I think the Lord was trying to teach me just how much my faith rested more on other people than it should have. And so when I was about 24, I had found out that a close Christian mentor of mine, who was solid biblically, was very intelligent, very wise, somebody that I and many, many other people saw as a great role model for a Christian, ended up deconstructing their faith and running far from the Lord. And this was one of the last people you might have expected to deconstruct their faith. And this was a particularly well-read individual as well. So this wasn't somebody who was flimsy with their faith. They took it very seriously. They engaged with it intelligently. And when they deconstructed their faith, that caused me to reflect pretty deeply. I thought, if that person lost their faith, could it just be not true and I not know? So I wanted to be confident. I didn't want to be blindsided. I wanted to make sure that what I believed was actually true. And I didn't see a reason to think that it wasn't, but I did have to ask some questions. So I had heard about the Talk About Doubts ministry, and I went and submitted a request, and Dr. Jonathan McLatchie, who founded the ministry, scheduled a Zoom call with me. And through that ministry, I was overwhelmed, but in a good way. I was overwhelmed by just how much evidence there was that Jesus is who he says he is, in that he had risen from the dead, confirmed that by rising from the dead. And that was a huge confidence booster. And Dr. McLatchie had given me some resources to look into and check out whether or not the Bible was reliable and whether or not Jesus had actually risen from the dead. And this wasn't like any of the resources that I had encountered before. Remember, I had told you that I had already investigated the case for Christianity. This was different. This was basically an avalanche. As Jonathan says, we have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the evidence for the Christian faith. And I became more and more and more confident. And as a result, I had a couple of different Zoom calls with them actually. And I've reached out to Jonathan whenever I've had a question. But it's more than just Dr. McLatchie. Because Dr. McClatchy, who is himself an expert in evolutionary biology, he's an expert in the resurrection, he also partners with many, many other experts. So the way Talk About Doubts works is you submit your doubt, and it's completely free of charge, by the way. They don't want any money from you. They genuinely care about people who are struggling with their faith and have serious questions about it, and they want to help. So you submit a request, they'll get back to you, and you will be hooked up with an expert in whatever it is that your doubt, whatever field that your doubt has to deal with. So let's say your doubt is about evolution and how that fits into the book of Genesis. More than likely, Dr. McClatchy is going to talk to you because he's actually has a degree in evolutionary biology. He's a prominent, intelligent design voice. But maybe it's about the resurrection and the reliability of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Well, then they might hook you up with a New Testament scholar. Or maybe it's about the brain. I believe they have a psychologist on board with them. So they'll hook you up with whoever is best equipped to help you with your doubt. And they will hook you up with other resources to help you investigate. And the reason I bring all this up is because there is a lot of noise about the case for Christianity, the evidence for Christianity or lack thereof. You'll hear voices like Dr. Bart Ehrman. You'll hear voices like the New Atheists. You'll hear people on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram about why they left their faith, why they deconstructed. And it is pretty clear that the vast majority of people, that, at least that I've come across, have never actually seriously investigated the case. They may have read one or two good articles at best, but maybe not even that. You're not going to get that with Talk About Doubts. They're going to show you some serious scholarship. They're going to show you why your faith is planted on solid ground and why you should remain a Christian. And I can say confidently today, I have a difficult time seeing how Christianity cannot be true. So, investigate it for yourself. This is not a deconstruction story. This is a reconstruction story. And there are many other reconstruction stories on this YouTube channel if you want to check them out. Thank you guys for listening, and you all have a blessed day.